Hello everybody, and welcome to Plumbing Solutions Educational Series. In this episode, we're going to talk about the toilet. Now, since I decided to do a whole episode on one fixture, I figured the best place to start would be with a little bit of history. So, the toilet, the commode, the water closet, the porcelain throne, the Louvre, the John. Some people even call it a crapper, and there's a reason for that. So the first toilets we know of dates all the way back to about 2800 BC. It was in the Mediterranean, and it was pretty much just a ditch with water flowing through it. And then along come the ancient Romans, the master plumbers that the ancient Romans were, and they took basically that ditch and they put a little building on top of it and put a whole bunch of little seats around. And that was the first latrine. Now, after the fall of the Roman Empire, the toilet pretty much disappears. It goes into the toilet dark ages for hundreds of years. The next time you see it is in the late 1500s. A man by the name of Sir John Harington comes along, and he builds two of them. And these things, they were wood, they were site built, custom built. You had to take a bucket and fill the tank on the back of it, but they're about the size of an upright piano. And he built two of them. He built one for himself, and he built one for his godmother, who just so happened to be Queen Elizabeth I. These things were very expensive. Only royalty and the very, very wealthy had these things. And the history kind of dwindles for a little while until you get to about 1775, and this is another Englishman. His name was Alexander Cummings. He put in a patent. Now, around about that time, there were some other gentlemen that were putting in patents, and there's a whole argument about who was first, blah, blah, blah. There was some Americans that had patents and stuff, but they were all pretty much the same, and that design is still what we have today with our flush and fill valve assembly and stuff. But they didn't really take off, because here, these things were site-built, custom toilets. Only the really wealthy and royalty had these things. Until right about the turn of the century, 1900, a man by the name of Thomas Crapper comes along. Now, this guy, he's a businessman, and he's a plumber, and he makes sinks and bathtubs and fixtures, faucets, and all kinds of stuff. He takes that patent and he modernizes it, where he can build these toilets in his workshop. And they were porcelain, just like what we have today. And the name of his company was Thomas Crapper and Company. And these things in the early 1900s were all over England, France, and Europe. Now, over here in America, we still had the good old trusty outhouse. But during World War I, we sent over thousands of American soldiers, and they went to England and France, and they got to experience this wonderful thing that had stamped all over it, Crapper and Company. So when they came back from the war, they started telling all their families and friends about the Crapper. And that's pretty much the history. After that, they really become mainstream. They're appearing in everybody's houses. They really did some work on slimming these things down and making them cheap where everybody can afford them. So I'm going to end this little section with Thomas Crapper's toilet. Well, that's a pretty neat thing. Resembles what we've got today, but for the life of me, I can't figure out why they put that tank way up in the air like they did. I guess they felt like they were going to be generating a lot more pressure, but you're only going to get 1 PSI per every 28 inches of vertical, roughly. So putting that thing 3 feet in the air is really not going to do you much good. Now, I've got one here. This is probably the most popular one that we use. This is a Gerber 1.28. It's an elongated. Going back to that original patent, there's a few things that just haven't changed. I mean, they've made advancements. They've improved on them. The first thing you're going to have in here is going to be your fill valve, and that's where your water comes in. Now, there's been a lot of different kinds out there. This is the newer style. It's an open cup fill valve because it's opened at the bottom. And basically, as the water comes up in the tank, it's going to catch that pocket of air, and it's going to lift, and it's going to shut the water flow off. From there, we go over to our flush valve. which you all know. You push the handle, it opens the flapper, it dumps the water out. Here is the 1.28 flush valve. Now, what's different here is we've actually got a 3-inch flapper on this guy. It's not your standard regular old 2-inch flapper, which was very popular for a long time. This dumps a little bit of water very fast. This dumped a lot of water over a longer period of time. So we have a lot less trouble with these big ones. But once you do that, once you trip that flapper, that water's going to leave the tank. It's going to go into the back of the bowl here. Now, toilets are hollow. It's hollow all the way around here. That water is going to rush down into the back of the bowl here, and it's going to go into this cavity here. Up under the rim, it's got all these little holes. We call them jets. That water is going to spray down through there, being pushed by the water that's coming in. From there, it's going to run down and start swirling. It's going to raise up through our P-trap or our trapway. It's going to hit a certain point, and then it's going to turn and take this dive. Now, when it does that, this is designed to create a little bit of a siphon. So it's going to help pull that water out. If you ever notice when a toilet flushes, at the end it kind of goes because it's catching the air and it's breaking that siphon. Now, as part of all this going on, it's taking time for the tank to fill back up, flappers down. The flush valve has an overflow tube on it with a hose that's connected to the fill valve that dumps a little bit of water back down into the bowl, which is going to fill your trapway and your bowl back up to a certain level. What that does is that creates your trap, like your P-trap, and it keeps sewer gases, odors, smells, and all that stuff where they belong and not up in your house. So that's the purpose of a P-trap. That's the basic designs of toilets. There's pretty much 3 that we use. We have a round front, we have your standard height elongated like this, and then we have what they call a comfort height or an ADA toilet. It's about 1.5 inches taller than your standard one, but the majority of those are still the elongated. There are some weird ones out there that are custom style toilets. Don't see a whole lot of them. We're pretty streamlined, pretty much standard. We only carry 3 of them back there in our warehouse. But that's going to do it for, I guess, our parts here. We're going to go on out into the training center and we're going to install one of these, and then after that we'll probably go in how to unclog these things if you were to have that event happen.